Freedom is one of the most desired yet misunderstood concepts in human life. From the moment people begin to think about their place in the world, the idea of freedom hovers like a shining star, promising happiness, self-direction, and escape from oppression. It has been the banner of revolutions, the justification for wars, and the whispered prayer of those who suffer under chains. But beneath its glow lies a truth that is often ignored. Freedom is never free. It carries a weight, a price, a hidden cost that must be paid in blood, sacrifice, responsibility, and even loneliness. The human story is filled with examples of this paradox, and to understand freedom is to accept that every liberty carries a burden. The first cost of freedom is responsibility. When someone is unfree, their choices are made for them. Systems dictate their path, rulers define their limits, and obligations remove their power to decide. This lack of freedom is crushing, but it also removes the heavy burden of ownership. When the chains are broken, however, the weight of choice falls on the shoulders of the newly free. With freedom comes the reality that success and failure can no longer be blamed entirely on others. The liberated person must decide how to live, where to go, what risks to take, and how to endure the consequences. Many believe they desire freedom, but what they truly want is comfort, the illusion of liberty without the responsibility that comes with it. History shows that entire societies have wrestled with this contradiction. The revolutions that overthrew kings and empires were not only about gaining rights, but also about accepting the price of self-government. When America declared independence, freedom demanded sacrifice on the battlefield, the creation of new systems, and the constant vigilance of its people. The French Revolution toppled monarchs but brought chaos, proving that freedom, if not tempered by responsibility, can dissolve into destruction. Each generation that inherits freedom must also inherit its price, the duty to protect it, the responsibility to nurture it, and the wisdom to handle its power without letting it consume itself. On a personal level, freedom is equally costly. To live free often means to walk alone. The individual who refuses to conform, who chooses their own path, inevitably separates themselves from the crowd. Conformity offers safety because it aligns with the expectations of family, culture, and society. But those who choose freedom often find themselves misunderstood, rejected, or even hated. Writers, philosophers, and thinkers who pursued truth beyond convention paid for their freedom with exile, censorship, or death. Socrates was condemned for teaching young men to think freely. Giordano Bruno was burned for refusing to recant his cosmic vision. Countless others lived lives of poverty or isolation because they refused to surrender their independence. Another cost of freedom is discipline. Absolute liberty, without structure, quickly decays into chaos. If one wants to be free from poverty, they must discipline themselves to work, save, and learn. If one wants to be free from ignorance, they must sacrifice time and effort to study. If one wants to be free from tyranny, they must accept the discipline of defending themselves and their society. Freedom without discipline is anarchy, and anarchy eventually collapses into a new form of control. The paradox is that freedom requires self-control. Only by mastering one's impulses can a person truly be free. The illusion of freedom tempts people into believing it is a natural state, when in reality it is always fragile. Laws, governments, and systems exist to regulate freedom, but the deeper truth is that freedom exists within limits. Nature itself imposes chains. We cannot escape hunger, death, time, or chance. The illusion of total control is dangerous because it blinds people to the constant negotiations required to maintain freedom. To ignore its price is to risk losing it entirely. In relationships, freedom is also tested. To be free in love is to risk vulnerability. To be free in expression is to risk rejection. To be free in ambition is to risk failure. Every form of liberty exposes the individual to danger, and many retreat into safe cages rather than endure the cost of standing unbound. Some prefer security to freedom, rules to risk, chains to uncertainty. This is why so many systems of control persist. People willingly trade freedom for safety, believing that to surrender decision-making is easier than to pay the price of liberty. Powerful leaders throughout history have understood this dynamic. Tyrants maintain control not only by force but by exploiting the human fear of freedom's price. They promise protection, stability, and comfort in exchange for obedience. People accept the deal because responsibility terrifies them more than oppression. True freedom requires courage, and courage is rare. The price of freedom is also eternal vigilance. It is not something gained once and kept forever. Every generation must decide whether to defend it or let it slip away. The moment people grow complacent, believing their liberty is guaranteed, it begins to erode. Those who understand power know how to chip away at freedom slowly, replacing it with subtle controls until people no longer notice their chains. This is why freedom demands constant attention, awareness, and the willingness to resist even small encroachments. For the individual, the price of freedom can be deeply personal. The artist who chooses creative freedom may live in poverty. The entrepreneur who seeks financial independence must endure sleepless nights, risk, and uncertainty. The traveler who craves freedom of movement sacrifices stability and roots. Every expression of freedom demands a payment, and the cost is measured not only in external sacrifices, but also in internal struggles. To be free is to be alone with one's choices, exposed to the consequences, and unable to hide behind excuses. Yet, despite its cost, freedom remains the most valuable condition a human being can aspire to. It gives meaning to struggle, dignity to sacrifice, and purpose to life. A person without freedom may live, but they do not truly exist. Their thoughts are confined, their actions dictated, their future predetermined. Freedom, even with all its pain and cost, is the only path that allows someone to fully become themselves. The illusion that freedom is free must be shattered. If we are to truly value it, children are taught to dream of liberty, but they must also be taught that liberty demands work, sacrifice, and discipline. Societies that forget this truth collapse into decadence, chaos, or tyranny. Individuals who forget it drift into dependency, complacency, or despair. The price of freedom is high, but the cost of losing it is far higher. In the end, freedom is not a destination but a constant battle. It is earned daily through choices, sacrifices, and the courage to accept responsibility. To live free is to walk a difficult road, filled with uncertainty, discipline, and often pain, but it is also the only road that leads to dignity, authenticity, and true human greatness. The chains of control, comfort, and safety may feel easier, but they crush the soul. The price of freedom may be high, but the value of it is beyond measure. So ask yourself, are you willing to pay that price? Because freedom will never come without it.